Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. This week, we are finally talking about my Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z. Later on in this episode, I'll be speaking with designer Dan Simon of Studio Simon, live from a coffee shop in Birmingham, Alabama. And then Baseball by Design wildlife correspondent Ranger Amy Burnett will join me live from a spooky cemetery at night. And then Dan Simon will be back, this time in studio, with his Studio Simon Stumper trivia question. Right now, I'm super happy to be speaking with Blake Baker, who is the communications manager for the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z, and Nate Martinez, who is the graphic designer for the team. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Great.
Doing great, Paul. Thanks for having us again.
Awesome. Nate, this is your second time on the podcast. You have worked with the Grand Junction Jackalopes, who are under the same ownership group. So if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you've heard Nate already talk about his work on the Jackalopes brand. Blake, this is your first time on the podcast. Super appreciate you being here. My neighborhood team just down the street. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado. You all are in Windsor, Colorado. It was about a 20-minute drive when we went to our first game. So welcome to the neighborhood. So glad to have minor league baseball here in town. Blake, I'll start this question with you. Why is this team called the Owlz? And in particular, why are you the Owlz with a Z? Where does the Z come from?
So I know from this team, if there hasn't been any, prior background here, this team started out in Utah. They were in Orem, Utah for, I believe it was 05 to 19. They were the Owlz with a Z. Before that, they were the Provo Angels. During that whole time, they were an affiliate of the Angels. So whenever, unless you were Mike Trout, if you were drafted by the Angels, you started in Orem. So I know that, I'm not from this area, but everything I've heard, owls are very prevalent around here. I have yet to see one myself here, but maybe I'm not up quite as late. But they are around here for sure. Where the Z comes from, I do know that. So the Jazz obviously is a Utah brand. Before the Salt Lake Bees became the Bees, they were the Salt Lake Buzz. So they love the Z's out there in Salt Lake City, that type of area. And they went with Owlz with a Z in accordance with that branding.
So when the team moved here to Northern Colorado, was there talk about changing that in any way? Was there, because obviously that Z, like you say, it's connected to Utah. Was there talk about changing the brand when the team relocated to Northern Colorado?
Not that I've heard. They really love the branding they've had. I know they changed the colors of the team in accordance with our soccer team here as well, Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC. So those two now share colors. So they went from like kind of the red and blue and yellow look to now it's a more of a navy blue and gold look. They really love the Owl's eyes logo. I don't know what the year was. I don't know what the metric, what the source was, but I know at one point in time in the mid 2000s, it was the number 2 selling logo in all of minor league baseball was the Owl's eyes logo. So they really wanted to keep that intact. And I think that was a driving force in it.
Nate, I'll direct this question to you here. The colors in the brand are different. You're the designer doing most of the work now with this brand. We talked about the Jackalopes brand already. As I mentioned, they were the Grand Junction Rockies. Now they're the Grand Junction Jackalopes, but that was a new brand. What are the challenges for you as a designer working with a brand that was already established, but you wanted to reestablish in a new place to make it its own?
Yeah, like we talked about, the brand basically stayed the same besides the colors. They did sort of revamp a logo for the area. They have a O claw that was for Orem, and they used the Colorado C instead. So that kind of helped with that acclimating to this area, because as we all know, you go to a gas station or just walk around and see someone's t-shirt, they have a Colorado flag on. The C is utilized everywhere, so that helps. As far as adapting a new brand, I think a good exercise we had from one of our social media coordinators was to find our brand voice. We tried to compare it to a celebrity. So being in minor league baseball, I was like, okay, so who are the Owls going to be anyways? And I'll give you some credit, Paul. In our podcast, you kept reiterating Owlz with a Z. So I think a lot of our branding and message this year has really gone Z heavy, because I wanted to lean into that. I was like, well, you know what? If it's going to be goofy to some people, if it's going to be retro to some people, we're going to lean into that. So we're finding that voice that way. And I think the celebrity we found that we wanted the Owls to compare to was Chris Pratt. So we wanted to have some humor there, some different type of faces, but also they can compete and do the action movies and do the that type of thing also. So I guess we're just trying to find that voice, and with the rebrand of just the colors and then the area move, I think that was the goal for that and the strategy.
I have to say, if I actually had some influence on the fact that you all have done, because I've noticed that you've doubled down on the Z. If I had some influence on that, I can't tell you how happy that makes me. It's
You absolutely did.
oh my gosh.
I came back and I was like, yeah, I got to do this podcast, and he's in this baseball world that I hope we get a really big voice in. And he kept saying Owlz with a Z, Owlz with a Z. Like, I think we just go for it.
Yeah, that's actually how I was introduced to you, as the Owlz with a Z guy. That's how you describe us, Owlz with a Z.
This makes me super, super, super happy. I noticed on some of the merch there, like the one of the t-shirts had OWL in white and then Z in gold. I can't tell you how happy this makes me to know that Owlz with a Z has made its way into the inner workings of the team. I noticed that one of the things that you were doing on Twitter was, baseball with a Z. That is totally fun. You all have your own podcast.
We did put together actually winter meetings with a Z. I did kind of put that together in the off season. Took over a little bit of responsibility with Hailstorm FC as well, so I didn't have quite as much time to keep that going, but that seemed to be a big hit. We touched on all different levels of Northern Colorado baseball out here and had to work in the Z with that for sure.
Amazing. So I've been to one game already. Baseball by Design wildlife consultant Ranger Amy Burnett sang the national anthem at the one game I've been to. We have plans to get to at least 3 more, because Amy's going to be singing some more. We're going to hear from Amy later on in this podcast about Owlz with an S. But the experience, it's a lot of fun, and I understand you're in the sort of an ancillary park right now, and the new stadium is going to be ready for 2024. Can't wait. Seeing the construction there, I'm super jazzed to get into that new ballpark there. But the experience, it's really, it's a lot of fun to go to this game and to feel the way that you all have embraced the sort of minor league baseball fun here. How do you feel, so far, in your second season in Northern Colorado, your first season at the Future Legends Sports Complex? How do you feel like you're being embraced by the community here?
I think it's been great. I think, last year, having kind of bounced around, we ourselves as the Owls played at both Jackson Field on the campus of UNC. We also played at a community park, Nelson Farm Park in Johnstown. So to have our own home and not kind of be, NoCo nomads here is awesome. We've loved every second of that. Getting to really put our own touch on how everything looks too has just been great. Like, Hailstorm them also bounced around last year, played at 3 different venues. And none of them that we were at really consistently had like a video board, or, we couldn't control like the signage and things. So being able to put our own stamp on those events has been a really nice touch, and really, I think we've embraced it. And I think the community at large has embraced it as well.
I picked up a dad hat at the game that I went to, and it's got the C with the talons of the owl talons there. I know that the eyes logo is probably the most popular of all of the brands. If I were Nate, I see you you've got the flat brim, you've got the more sort of structured hat. I don't have the head for that, right? Like I can't wear that style of hat. What are you finding now, being in Northern Colorado? What are you finding are the most popular marks that the fans are drawn to in terms of merch and whatnot?
Yeah, I figured definitely that C, like I kind of alluded to earlier, that was going to resonate right away. Ownership loves the eyes, I think rightfully so. Proof is in pudding for that.
Yeah.
But the C, I think, has gone great. And then the script, I failed to mention that earlier. The script that they have now, that's been updated since they moved over here also. So instead of kind of that block, almost graffiti handwriting approach they had in Orem, they have the script, and I think that's gone over really well. So I think as far as merch and sales, that Colorado C, anything with that flag or that branding, and then the Owlz script has gone great. So I think I saw your post, you had the Owlz script 3/4 there. So
I did. That's a great t-shirt. It's super comfortable. And and I was wearing the dad hat that I had just bought. I understand, the dad hat is, you don't sell as many dad hats. There's fewer options for them. And so I was glad to see there was a logo that I liked in the dad hat option there. So I probably would have also ended up with the eyes if that had been available on the dad hat there. So
it's funny you said that about the flat bills and stuff. I never thought I'd be able to pull off a dad hat actually. And work, as I mentioned in the last podcast, I think working at Zephyr Hats is like always saw the dad has, like, yeah, that just never going to be for me, but I've acclimated also. So
All right.
I always find a purpose for every type of hat nowadays.
Well, and Nate, this question probably won't be a surprise to you, but for both of you, the question is: Are we planning on having ice cream helmets with the Owlz branding on them?
Oh, I sure hope so. I mean, that's part of the ballpark experience, right? I know we have a big member of our team is huge into Dole Whip. So that's
Really?
where we've started, is the Dole Whip truck. Once we get our concessions all established and all that, I will be sure to put it into their ear that we need that ice cream baseball helmet.
Yeah, I'll say if we have anything to say about it, yes.
There you go. I do like hearing that. You just very recently started selling beer at the ballpark. Has that affected the game experience at all?
So for Hailstorm, we've had one game where we've sold beer and it was a hit. You know, as you would imagine, we haven't actually yet been selling it at our baseball games, but it'll go over, I think, even better. You know, we're actually getting a branded beer in here from Peculiar Ales down the street. Who's on First is their branded. They also have a Hail Ale that's been a huge hit. So I expect it to be the same way among baseball fans. So yes, we've definitely seen return on that for sure.
Yeah,
you know,
Friday,
I have to ask about this question. How is Who's spelled?
HOO.
HOO.
I think it's apostrophe. Is it Z or is it S?
We went S on that one, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, but HOO apostrophe S on First. Who's on First?
That's right.
I do like that. And so, Blake, when did you say that's going to be available?
I believe starting at this, you know, as the time of this recording, our next game is tomorrow. Actually, the June 16th, we have a 3-game home set against the Jackalopes, the battle for 970. So it should be a hit. It should be ready to go by then.
A lot of teams do the area code as part, like they do a brand with the area code. Are we going to get a 970 brand? I kind of love this idea.
I think we've kicked that around a little bit.
Yeah, we've been trying to push towards that, and now that I think it happened recently, or maybe I just found out about recently that Grand Junction is also 970, oddly. So that just kind of worked out, and I think once we kind of got to see how the team interacted locally, the area code always goes over well. So we're definitely going to try to get some more of that going.
This question is for both of you here. You know, a lot of time when a team relocates, they want to find, you know, something specific to that area and make that their own brand. Blake, you mentioned we have a lot of Owls here, right? There are Owls in Northern Colorado, so the brand makes sense here. Was there talk about rebranding, or is there talk about rebranding? Is there talk about taking this team and making it something more specific to Northern Colorado?
I know when I first got involved, I had no idea about that either. It's like, is this going to stay the Owls? Like, do they want to just revamp? And honestly, selfishly as a designer, I wanted to get the rebrand going. Just and my idea at the time, like, I didn't get a chance to pitch once I found out what the strategy was, but I wanted the Windsor Warlocks because it tied into Windsor Wizards, the high school, and their kind of history, and then just also a little odd out there.
Yeah,
just like that minor league baseball stuff we're going for. But there are no plans to rebrand. They're sticking with the Owls as far as we know, and we're just gonna try to merge that new with the old and truck forward.
Yeah, no, I think that the Owlz brand has gone over swimmingly so far. So I think that the plan for right now is to stick with it. And, you know, they're really big on the history here as well. If you include the days as the Provo Angels, they've won 5 league titles, 4 as the Owls. So I think they want to continue that a little bit and bring that here, kind of supplant that in this area for the time being. And that's never to say that, or not to say that we'll never kind of switch that up, but I think it's going well so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving having this brand here. And so, you know, when I learned that the team was moving here, my first thought was, oh, what's that going to be? Like, what's the thing that's specific to Northern Colorado? You know, it's funny for me being a huge minor league baseball fan, ending up in a place where there isn't, I mean, the nearest affiliated minor league baseball is either Salt Lake or Omaha or Albuquerque. All of them are about 7 hours away. To have the Pioneer League now, even the Pioneer League was a long drive for me to get to. So to have independent minor league baseball here has been, you know, such a thrill for me. The Pioneer League, one of the things that the Pioneer League does that I absolutely love is the tie-breaking home run contest. And I have yet to see it. I'm dying to see it. So I'm just going to keep going to these games until I get to see it. But I did a whole Montana trip where I saw the Paddleheads and I saw the Voyagers and, well, Idaho Falls, obviously not in Montana, and the Mustangs. So I went to 4 games, None of them ended up in a tie, so I didn't get to see the home run contest. When I was there at my first game with the Owls with a Z, it was tied like 3 times in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, and I didn't get to see the Owls with a Z ended up walking it off, and so I didn't get to see my tie-breaking home run contest. Have we had one yet this season?
This season we have not. I think
Okay.
the Pioneer League would get on us if we didn't say it's called the knockout round. I think
Okay,
they like to promote that as well, which I think is a cool name too.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. Last year I think there were 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them, won about half of them. I think we had one at home and the rest were on the road. We won the one at home last season. So they're exciting, man. They're awesome.
You know how the minor league teams, a lot of minor league teams are doing like the alternate, like food-based identity.
Yeah, like an alter ego type of thing. Yeah.
The alter egos, yeah, they'll do the alternate, so like the obviously the Fresno tacos, I think, were the first to do it, and you have the Lehigh Valley cheesesteaks, and
yep, I
my
worked
favorite.
at the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, went with the Fort Wayne pork tenderloins or Indiana pork tenderloins. That was a recent one they did. Yeah, it's a big hit.
I like the Delmarva Scrapple just because that's a weird thing that I eat from where I grew up. The Rocky Mountain Vibes are another member of the Pioneer League. We've got 3 Pioneer League teams here now in Colorado. The Vibes, when they rebranded, they very famously, one of the team names that they did not go with, that everyone thought they might go with, was the Rocky Mountain Oysters, which is a very specific food item that people always ask me about, being from Colorado. So I'll just ask you the question: if the Owls with a Z were to do an alternate food-based brand, do you think Rocky Mountain Oysters might be one of the possibilities?
It's funny you mentioned that. I've been kind of flying that flag a lot, along with the Hispanic Heritage Copa type idea. So we have things lined up a little further ahead in the Copa, so that's down the pike. Pay attention to that. For the food thing, I've been trying to explain to people, all right, so locally we got to have something, and first thing that came to my mind, obviously, the oysters. And I actually have a hat that's of Rocky Mountain Oysters. I think it's just like a summer league team somewhere, but it's great logo. And I was thinking, well, I know this is the Rocky Mountain Oysters, like maybe we can do bowl fries, something like that. I know there was a calf fries team. I can't recall which one, but they did calf fries lately. And not to call out the California around here, but a lot of out of towners. And I think just the thought of it makes them squirm a little bit. But I think once we do the old trick, like what my parents did, and say, hey, I got some chicken fingers here if you want to try them. And then you pop them in and like, oh, well, you just tried a bull fry. There you go. So we've had a couple ideas thrown around with the green chili in Colorado involvement a little bit. Like we were thinking about hatchers, and then that ties in with the owls laying eggs and things like that. Something that just had a ring to it, kettle corn, funnel cakes. That's kind of stuff I've tossed around, but would absolutely love to be a part of that.
So many possibilities, and like I'm so like I said, I'm so glad to have a team here in town, my local team. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoon here and talking about the Owls with a Z. I'm so honored that Owls with a Z has wormed its way into the inner workings of the team. Can't wait to get out there for some more games. Where can people find you guys online?
We're online at northernColoradoOwlz.com. That's our website. On Facebook and Instagram, it's at NoCo Owlz. On Twitter, at OwlzNoCo.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Look forward to talking to you. See you out at the ballpark.
Thanks a lot, Paul. We appreciate the support. We'll see you soon.
No, thank you so much. We'll see you out there.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to the very first episode of Designers in Cars Getting Coffee. We're here in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm with Dan Simon of Studio Simon. We've been on the road for what's been about a month and a half, I think.
Feels like it.
We got here, it's a Sunday morning. We got here Friday afternoon. We went and saw a Rocket City Trash Pandas game. That was great. Last night we went and saw your Savannah Bananas. You got to throw out the first banana.
The golden banana. Yes, it was on my bucket list, was to throw out a first pitch. I would imagine constitutes a first pitch, but it was not with a baseball. It was with a banana. So if you're going to do something for the first time, make it unique. And this was certainly unique.
What do you think? Is there an asterisk on threw out the first pitch?
Yeah, there is. As unique as it is, I guess still on the bucket list then for me is throwing an actual baseball.
Throwing a baseball. You bounced it. You bounced the banana on the plate.
Yes, but I'm gonna make an excuse. I have thrown literally tens of thousands of baseballs in my life. As a matter of fact, that led to torn rotator cuff and rotator cuff surgery and rehab. But though I have consumed and peeled and consumed maybe as many bananas as baseballs thrown, I've never thrown a banana. So I did not know quite what type of heft to use, if that's the right word. And I got a little instruction from the young professor who was the MC of for the banana ball games, and he directed me to throw it more like I'm throwing a tomahawk than throwing a baseball. So I did that, and again, never actually threw a tomahawk. So I was going in blind.
Good thing you didn't throw it like a boomerang, because that was a squishy banana. That golden banana was squishy, and if it came back and smacked you in the face.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact. So I did bounce it. It was almost, it's not like I bounced it 5 feet in front of the plate. It was like right on the plate.
Yeah.
And,
I'd have swung at it. I probably would have swung at it.
Well, it had a lot of movement. So it was coming in, looked like it was coming in as a strike, and then it dove to, it was a great sinker.
Those are the best pitches, absolutely.
But speaking of it being a bit of a squishy banana, the banana was painted gold, and when it hit the plate, it split. So it was a banana split because it was a bit mushy. So
and then you have to keep the banana.
Yeah, but I don't still have it. Mushy bananas do not travel well.
I thought we were going to have that bronzed. It does raise the question. The Savannah Bananas have, this was, I think, one of 50 games that they're playing this season.
Some number around that. That sounds about right to me.
Which means they go through a bunch of bananas, don't you think?
The bananas come in. Yeah, they do come in bunches.
It's a bunch of bananas. It was a great joke.
Yes,
it was actually a really good joke then. So that was at historic Rickwood Field, the oldest ballpark in America since 1910. We learned recently that is going to be the site of a Major League Baseball game next year. We know there's going to be some major renovations. This morning, we're at Santos Coffee Shop. That's how come we're designers in cars getting coffee, because we've been in your car to Madison, where we went to the Marshall Space Flight Center. That was amazing. We got a great behind-the-scenes tour with Jay Hollenbeck of NASA, former guest of the Baseball by Design podcast.
A rocket scientist. He's a physicist, but a real rocket scientist.
A literal rocket scientist who then joined us at the Trash Pandas game. And then we picked up Anna DiTomaso. You're wearing her baseball bucket list t-shirt that you created for her with the mascot Kirby Bucket. We went to the Negro Southern League's Baseball Museum yesterday. That was an amazing experience. And then out to Rickwood Field for the game. While we were at Rickwood Field, we had the totally unexpected opportunity to be joined by Donnie Wise and Johnny Bolin. Johnny Bolin, who you've been on the Earned Fun Average podcast with Johnny and Eric Froppett, and their lovely, lovely wives, Rhonda, and Johnny just refers to her lovingly as the CEO. So it was really great to get to meet them this morning, designers in cars, getting coffee, to talk about the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z, because you've done some work on that brand. But first, I should say that Santos Coffee Shop is in the shadow of Protective Stadium. The name of it is Protective Stadium. And that's of note because you, Dan Simon, were one of 4 designers who worked on a project for the USFL, which is playing the South Division Championship game here in Birmingham today. So we are mere feet away from the place where the South Division champion will be determined later on today. But before we get to the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z, would you tell me about that project? And we don't talk a lot about the USFL on Baseball by Design, but this is a unique opportunity with the South Division Championship game going on today.
Yeah, it is a coincidence. We're here because of the Savannah Bananas game. So there's that tie to Studio Simon, but also as Paul said, we are in the shadow of Protective Stadium. Myself, along with my great friend Joe Bosak of the Joe Bosak Company, as well as 2 of the most talented sports branding designers in the business, Fraser Davidson and Thomas Hatfield. The 4 of us together worked on what was a fire drill of a project where we created the eight team logos for the inaugural season, which was last spring, of the resurrected USFL. The USFL was a professional spring football league that played from 1983 to 1985. And they then went defunct. And it was resurrected by Fox Sports, who bought the rights to all of the league and all of its intellectual property. And we were tasked with resurrecting. They resurrected the league. We needed to resurrect those logos. So what they wanted to do was take the original logos and bring them up to date, not reinvent the wheel, but make them look like they were done in the 21st century instead of the 1980s when they were originally done. But we had very limited time to do it. And we did the full branding for all 8 of those teams, full branding, logos, lettering, uniforms, helmet design, all of that stuff. 8 teams in 7 weeks. So that's less than a week per team. And it was actually, it might sound like kind of a scramble, but it wasn't. It was great because we're talking about the 3 guys that I'm working with are the 3 of the very, very top designers in the business. And the stuff they do is so good. And there was so much good stuff that came out of it. So there were not a lot of revisions to be done. It was just like, hey, what if we did this and made it a little better? And so you took really good work and then made it even that much better. And I'm very proud of all the work that we did together. It was really fun working with those guys.
This, Dan, this may set the record for the longest preamble before we actually got to talk about the brand at hand. This is work that you did almost 2 decades ago. This team, the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z, they were originally the Orem Owlz with a Z. Prior to that being the Orem Owlz with a Z, they were the Provo Angels. When they rebranded as the Orem Owlz with a Z, you created that brand, that original brand when they were in Orem, Utah. They were an affiliated team in the Pioneer League back before the Pioneer League's affiliation was stripped away by the Vogon Destructor Fleet of Major League Baseball. So let's talk about your work on the Orem Owlz with a Z. This was a project, like I said, that happened almost 2 decades ago. You probably did the work in 2004 for their unveiling in 2005. At a time when sports branding was pretty different. It's changed a lot in 2 decades. So if you can recall, Dan, through the haze of the years, what were you tasked with and how did you come up with this Owlz brand when it was back in Orem?
Oh, sports branding projects can work several different ways with regard to the particular clients you're working with that are involved in the decision-making process. And that client, in this case, sometimes you're working with numerous people, sometimes you're just working with one. And in this case, I was working with one, which was Jeff Katofsky, who was the team owner. And Jeff is definitely somebody who knows what he wants. So now, when I said sports projects can work in various ways, I've had projects where the team comes to me and has no idea what they want, and they really need me to give them a lot of ideas. And then there's something in between where they have some idea of where they want to go, and then they're relying on my experience and expertise to take those germs of ideas they have and bring it to full life. And so Jeff was somebody there was something he definitely knew he wanted, and then I had to take that and build something around it. So it was one specific thing. And that one specific thing was the eyes. This was, as you mentioned, 2004. So it wasn't all that far removed from when the Lake Elsinore Storm came out with what is really an iconic minor league cap solution. Nobody had ever done anything like they had done. The Lake Elsinore Storm logo was just the eyes of the storm cloud. And so it wasn't really a logo on there, it was the eyes, and it became like almost like a literal thing on a cap instead of just the logo on a cap. So owls, of course, have distinctive eyes. I'm sure when Ranger Amy comes onto the podcast later, she might get into some of the distinctive things about Owl's eyes. To me, they're very distinctive. One of the things about them is, as opposed to most birds where the eyes are on the side of the head, Owl's eyes are in the front. So, and they're also big and round. And with that bigness and roundness, maybe not all owls, but at least the type of owls we stereotypically think of, Jeff wanted those eyes as the logo on the cap. And he referenced the Lake Elsinore storm. Now, he didn't say make them look just like that. And as a matter of fact, I wouldn't have made them look just like that, because then it becomes derivative of somebody else's intellectual property. So we wanted our own unique look. So I knew what I was going to be doing on the cap. But from there, I needed to, we were going to do an owl. And how's that owl going to look? And I remember starting out some sketches and doing sketches of owls, and it's coming along like most sports branding projects. And I was thinking, okay, how am I going to bring baseball into this? And it occurred to me that most owls' heads are pretty much round in shape. And what else is round in baseball? The ball.
The golden banana. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And the ball I did not get to throw out in favor of the banana that I did. And so I decided, okay, that ball is going to be the centerpiece of this owl, and it's going to be his head. Not necessarily a new idea in sports. You know, Mr. Met has a famous baseball head. So, and we've seen it. I don't know if we've seen it before Mr. Met, but we sure have seen it a lot after that, both with mascots and in logos.
Right. All the way up to the Kannapolis Cannonballers.
Yep. And some stuff I've more recently done that may or may not see the field of play, whether it's been presented, but we haven't made final decisions yet.
Okay. All right.
Final decisions have not been made yet on it. So anyway, we built out the owl based on the baseball head, and I put cross bats behind his neck that with his wings kind of as the enclosure for those bats, making it all fit together as a nice contained logo artwork. And then, as you mentioned earlier, since this was done almost 2 decades ago, sports brand identity systems did not have back then as many secondary logos, unique secondary logos as they do now, where my friends in the sports branding sphere who do a lot of other minor league identities, I won't say their name, but it rhymes with Schmandios. They started to include a lot of stuff in brand identity systems, and that's now become the standard for sports brand identity, especially minor league baseball brand identities. But back then we had the head to talon full figure owl. And then we had what we call peelables, which you take the head from that full body owl and take it out, and it stands on its own. We had the eyes that stand on its own and are used as the home cap logo. And then the one unique secondary logo we had was the letter O from the owl's lettering I did, being clutched by the talons of the owl. And that's what made up the brand identity system. Color-wise, that they were an Angels affiliate. So we're using the Angels blue and red, more red than blue, navy that is, and then some yellow for the eyes and beak, and a little gray in there for some dimension.
And this logo, even with the location change, has remained largely intact with the team through multiple owners. Obviously, the colors changed when they moved to northern Colorado, but the primary logo is still in use. And they've done some new things with the text and whatnot. But this logo has stood the test of 20 years in minor league baseball, which is quite a long time, especially given that they have changed locations and ownership groups. So that's unusual for a brand to survive all of those things basically intact, except for the colorway. Is there something about this logo that you think gives it a longevity, or is it, do you think it's destined to be rebranded someday?
To a certain degree, with notable exceptions like the Durham Bulls and the New York Yankees, most sports brands are destined to be rebranded. Even some iconic brands have been rebranded. But in this case, first of all, there are not a lot of owls in the sports realm. There are a handful, but they're not as ubiquitous as bulldogs and eagles and some other things that we
Go
see
birds.
out there. And and when I think about the other ones that are out there, like the temple owls, like the Forest City Owls, do I have that right? It's a collegiate summer league.
I don't know that
team.
one.
I think that's right. The Forest City Owls, they're all depictions of owls as they look in nature. And what stands out about the Orem Owlz is it's got a baseball head. So it's uniquely baseball, but it's also unique amongst sports branding owls. And he's I think there's an appeal to that. So
Yeah.
I think that's helped it stand the test of time.
There's a real dimensionality to this owl, right? Because the way he's holding, first of all, he's got his wings open, its wings open, her wings open. We don't know. It's hard to tell with an owl. It's got the baseball head, but then it looks like it's got its talons holding the handles of the bats forward. And then the bats go behind its head, but in front of its wings. So it really looks like it's coming right at you.
And then behind the wings, you have its tail. So you've literally got 5 layers to this, not counting the typography, if we were talking about the full primary logo.
Right.
But you've got, as you mentioned, the talons. They're probably what's most forward, kind of a little bit in front, like at shoulder height, a little bit in front of the head. Then you got the head, so that's layer 2. Then you got the bats behind the head, layer 3, the wings behind the bats, layer 4, and the tail behind the wings. So that's that's
5 layers.
Yeah.
It's an audio podcast here, but I wish people could see us like gesticulating as we're trying to imitate this owl and holding the bats here. Cause that's, we look like a couple of crazy designer people in a coffee shop in Birmingham, Alabama. Dan, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we finally got to talk about this brand. I've known for a long time that the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z were getting ready to be my hometown team. They're about 25 minutes away. One of the notable facts about this is that Ranger Amy has sung the national anthem. At the time of this recording, she has sung the national anthem twice at Owlz games, and she has at least one more coming up this season. And so that's been a fun experience. We've gotten the people of honor at Owlz games. I got pulled out of the crowd for a trivia question at an Owlz game. Where, did I tell you this? The trivia question was name as many minor league baseball teams as you can in 15 seconds.
You did not tell me. How did you do?
I got 10, which earned me 4 free tickets.
Nice.
So, yeah, so
Nice.
that was all right.
They were, considering is at random, if they were hoping not to give out tickets, they picked the wrong guy, because you could have, if you were given more time, you could have gone on almost all night.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was not random. I'm pretty sure they knew who I was. But you're going to be back later on this episode after I talk to Ranger Amy to bring your Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z based stumper. And I just want to say now, knowing that we don't know what the question is going to be, I hope it involves the letter Z in some way.
Okay, well, that's a good prompt. I will get with my research team and see if maybe we can do something along those lines.
Dan, we'll see you back in the studio in a few minutes.
See you then.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the spookiest segment that you're ever going to hear on Baseball by Design.
I'm scared.
It is scary. We're in a cemetery. It's at night. It's dark. We're here with Ranger Amy Burnett, Baseball by Design wildlife consultant, Ranger Amy Burnett. Amy, why are we in a cemetery in the middle of the night?
We're in a cemetery because there's a great horned owl that lives here, and I want to see if we can find it.
All right, so we're out bird watching in the dark, bird listening, birding.
Birding.
We've been talking this whole episode about owls with a Z. You and I are going to talk about owls with an S. Here we are in Northern Colorado, home of the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z. Also home of owls with an S. What kind of owls do we have here in Northern Colorado?
In Northern Colorado, you can find great horned owls, which is what we're looking for tonight. Screech owls, saw-whet owls, burrowing owls. We've just got a lot of different owls, but the one we're going to look for tonight is the great horned owl.
That's good, because my understanding of the burrowing owl is they never pay you back.
So bad.
Yeah. You can hear, right now I hear crickets. We're doing good cricketing right now, but so far no birding.
Yeah, well, we haven't started yet. I haven't called it yet.
Oh, let's hear it. Are you going to call it?
Yeah, you know I do owl calls.
All right, let's have
Don't you?
it. Yes, but I didn't realize you were going to perform here
How
tonight.
long have you known me?
17 years, actually.
Okay, here we go. This is what a great horned owl sounds like. Let's see if we can call one in. Woo, 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 woo. Now we listen.
Oh, okay. This is good audio. All right. Well, let's talk about owls.
Apparently, they don't want to talk back to us tonight.
Okay.
But-
well, we're near them, though.
We are near them. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll hear one while we're doing an interview. Anyway.
Who?
So bad. Did you know that if an owl flew overhead right now, you wouldn't hear it?
Ooh, that's so cool. How come?
Because you can't hear their wings flap.
They're stealth.
They're stealth flyers. They have these really cool wing feathers.
All right, so let's get into this here. Let's talk about owls as baseball players. Let's
Okay.
talk about owls as a mascot for a baseball team.
Okay.
Let's have it. You know the questions I have for you. What makes an owl a great baseball player?
All right. Well, owls have these supernatural senses. So they have amazing eyes, ears, and the ability to turn their head so far around that they're just amazing predators of the night.
Think about Willie Mays making his incredible over-the-shoulder catch, running straight away from home plate. If he were an owl, if he had the ability that owls have to turn their head all the way around, he could have been looking straight backwards while running towards the center field wall. He could have been tracking the ball while running straight at the center field wall.
Well, the big problem with that is that owls don't turn out their heads all the way around.
Oh, I see.
But they can do an impressive 270 degrees. But what makes them really great at seeing is that they have these huge eyes. The reason their eyes are so big is to bring in more light because a lot of them are nocturnal, right?
Yeah.
So if you have bigger eyes, you can capture more light, right? So have you ever heard someone say wise as an owl?
Yes.
They look like they're wearing glasses.
Is that what it is? Are we equating bad eyesight with intelligence?
Yeah.
That's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah, like nerds, right? The
Yeah.
emoji for nerd is someone with glasses.
Right.
So we think of owls, they look like they're wearing glasses because their eyes are really big and they've got half the time they got rings around the eyes, right?
Yeah.
They have big, huge circular eyes, so people think that they're smart. But the problem is that they have such huge eyes that they take up most of their space in their head and there's not that much room left for a brain.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Isn't that funny?
So owls are not that bright.
They're not really that bright. They don't have that much room in their brains because their eyeballs take up so much room. Oh, except that they don't have eyeballs. Their eyes are like tubes. They're shaped like tubes, not really like eyeballs.
Really? Owls have eye tubes.
Eye tubes.
Okay.
Just to prove how not real smart owls are, they're really easy to catch. Have you ever tried to catch an owl?
I've not.
Okay. Well, so I have to catch a lot in my work when you have like an owl that has a broken wing or something like that. So I've had to catch a lot of owls. I don't know how many, but a lot. But all you have to do, this is how you catch an owl, is the owl's on the ground, right, with a broken wing or something, but it can still hurt you. It can still, foot you with those talons. That's a technical term.
Foot you.
Yeah. Foot
Okay.
you with their talons, and that can really mess you up. So you have to just take one hand, and you wave it over like this,
Okay.
and then with the other hand, you grab them.
How about that?
That's it.
Yeah.
So they're looking at this hand over here, and they're like, as soon as you see that whole head turn and watch this hand that's moving, your other hand goes around and you swoop up both feet, and boom, there you go.
You
Then
got
have
an
an
owl.
owl. And then they're like, "Ah." They can't really get you with their beak. It's real short. So as long as you're not pulling them in close to you where they can get you with their short beaks, then they're pretty much helpless. Once you have their feet, you just pull it in their wings, and they're all good.
The owls being so easy to catch, I think, explains how come the northern Colorado Owlz with a Z don't have a single stolen base this year.
Oh, that's so sad. Maybe
So-
if they had hearing like owls, they would be.
That's true. It's also
They'd have an advantage.
not true. You and I have seen them steal many bases, but it was a hilarious premise for a joke, no?
It kind of was.
So they've got good eyesight, no
Good eyesight.
brains, and
Small
they're
brains.
and they're very sneaky.
They're below average, or not really above average, I should say.
Not really above
Like
average
crows
intelligence.
and ravens, way smarter than owls.
Really?
Yeah. So.
So now when we want to talk about someone being smart, we got to talk about crows.
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably won't have to do it in a cemetery, but what they lack in brains, they make up for in perception.
Ooh.
Most predators have forward-facing eyes, and owls are no different. And they have this like satellite dish-shaped face. That satellite dish-shaped face actually helps them to hear better. So they can not only hear better, but their ears are lopsided.
Their ears are lopsided?
They're asymmetrical. They're
Oh.
in different. They're not side to side on their head. So that means they can triangulate noises.
Whoa.
So basically, when they hear a noise, they move their head. They can't move their eyes back and forth. They have to move their head.
Huh.
So it could be an advantage for a baseball player to have that 270 degrees, but they lose that peripheral vision. But they're triangulating the sound. So an owl would definitely not miss the sound of someone stealing a base. There's no way.
How would they do with a baseball coming right at them if they were batting and they're trying to hit a baseball?
As long as it was coming from a far distance, they would do incredible. However,
how about 60 feet 6 inches?
But they really good, and because then they would just basically face the baseball and put themselves in that direction, and then boom, because they can do that in pretty much darkness. Imagine you had a stadium, such as the Astrodome. They've done this recently.
What year is this? How long have I been asleep?
Owl could come down and get a mouse in the stadium with only one light of one candle. An owl could see with that much light. So that's how good their eyesight is in the dark. So you could basically almost blindfold an owl because they're using a lot more hearing sense.
Owls are the daredevil of the bird world.
Did Daredevil have great hearing?
Daredevil was blind, and so all of his other senses.
I did not know
Yeah.
that. Huh? Okay, I learned
Absolutely.
something. So back to how big their eyes are.
Yeah.
Because their eyes are so big and they take up so much room, that's another reason they look like almost human-like, because their eyes are proportionally big, and that's why we love owls. They're so charismatic because they have the exaggerated eyes. So if our eyes were as big proportionally as an owl's eyes, our eyes would be the size of softballs in our head.
Softballs. This is true. This is a phenomenon with all animals, right? Like even spiders who look like they have big eyes. People are like, oh, they're cute because they think they have big eyes. Yeah.
It's that charismatic thing about having big eyes.
Yeah.
It's like anime. Owls have like anime eyes.
You have sung the national anthem now 3 times at the Northern Colorado Owlz with a Z game.
But they did not ask me to do an owl impression.
They did not ask you to do an owl impression, nor have you agreed to sing the first line, "Oh, say, can you Z?"
I just don't think it would not be proper.
Okay. Well, Ranger Amy Burnett, you're on Twitter at Ranger Amy. Ranger Amy, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
It is time once again for Studio Simon Stumpers, your favorite, my favorite, our favorite. Sounds like we're screaming for ice cream here, but it's Studio Simon Stumpers. Dan, how are you? We're back on Zoom. We're no longer in the coffee shop. It's time for Studio Simon Stumpers. How you doing?
I am fantastic, thank you. Not actually correcting you, but there's a slight change for today. It's not Studio Simon Stumpers today, but rather, because of the subject of this episode, Studio Simon Stumpers ending with a Z.
Studio Simon's Numbers with a Z. It's perfect. All right. Well, I'm excited to see where this could go. It could go something to do with birds. I know that you and Ranger Amy were talking birds in Birmingham. It could be something to do with the letter Z. It could be something to do with teams that have changed locations but kept their same name. I'm excited to see where this is going to go.
Well, would you say you are excited to Z where this is going to go?
You know, I have been trying to get Ranger Amy. She's sung the national anthem now twice at Owlz with Z games. I have been trying to get her to start with "Oh, say, can you Z," and she won't do it.
Well, that Ranger Amy. Anyway, well, I am excited to Z how you do on today's Stumper. And if you all haven't figured it out yet, it does have everything to do with the letter Z. And before we get to the A, B, Z choices here, we're going to start the Stumper with 2 you either know it or you don't questions.
Okay.
So which is the last minor league or collegiate summer league baseball team to have had a name that started with the letter Z?
I'm going to go the New Orleans Zephyrs.
That is correct. I figured you would know that one. I figured you would know it right away.
The Zephyrs were top of mind because I was thinking that's a team that switched cities and kept its name and has a Z in it. The Denver Zephyrs became the New Orleans Zephyrs. And of course, those are now Eric Proffitt's Wichita Wind Surge. But I thought the Denver Zephyrs might actually be the answer to the actual dumper.
Well, it's starting this dumpers. So before you were correct in everything you just said. They were formerly the Denver Zephyrs. Before that, they were the Denver Bears.
Yeah.
The team changed its name while in Denver to Zephyrs in 1984. And then they moved to New Orleans in 1993 when they were displaced from their Mile High Stadium home by the expansion Colorado Rockies. I guess if not your hometown team, at least your home state team. So they kept the name Zephyrs despite it having no local or regional significance. Now, there was a roller coaster named the Zephyr at Pontchartrain Beach Amusement Park, but that amusement park closed 34 years prior to the Zephyr baseball team's arrival. So I really think that was more of a coincidence rather than a good reason for keeping that name. But the Zephyr name did have significance in Denver. Are you familiar with that story?
I am. The word Zephyr means a gentle westerly wind. But the origin of the nickname is from the longest running passenger train, the longest distance passenger train at that time, which ran from Chicago to Denver.
Right. And on May 26, 1934, the Art Deco styled passenger train called the Pioneer Zephyr made its maiden run, departing, as you said, from Denver on a nonstop dawn to dusk dash, as they called it, to Chicago. A 1,000-mile trip in a record time of just 13 hours, which ushered in a new age of streamliner rail travel. So that's the reason for the name Zephyrs. Nobody knows the reason why they kept that name when they moved to New Orleans. Of course, they did eventually change it to
Our Baby Cakes, the
There you
creepiest logo in the history of minor league baseball. I really want to believe that they kept that name because of the roller coaster at Pontchartrain Park there. I want to believe that story that they said, no, there's a connection here too, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, in the history of sports, not just in baseball, but in the history of sports, there are very few team names that begin with a Z. Probably more that end with a Z than begin with a Z. You've got the Owls with a Z. I believe the Utah WNBA team might have been the Stars with a Z to go with the Jazz, maybe even Tuesdays, whatever.
The Salt Lake Bees used to be the Salt Lake Buzz with two Z's, the Buzz with two Z's. So,
but really, there's not a lot of sport teams in the history of sports that began with a Z. But there still is one current minor league or collegiate summer league team that has a name that starts with a Z. Do you know what that is? That's part two of today's Stumpers.
A minor league team or a collegiate summer level.
This team was discussed on episode 46 of the Baseball by Design podcast.
I never Google when we talk about these things, so I don't remember what episode 46 was. So rather than drag this out and drag the listeners through me hemming and hawing here, I'm just going to ask you to tell me because I don't remember.
Okay, let's just give the answer to that then. The Asheboro Zookeepers.
Oh, the Zookeepers, of course. It's a good one.
Okay, so now for the ABZ question, the third part of today's studio. I'm killing myself. Diamond Stumpers asks, which one of these three was once a minor league baseball team name? Was it A, Zeros, B, Zebras, or Z, Zombies?
It feels counterintuitive, but my inclination is towards Zeros. And again, it sounds like one of those team names that, like a reporter would have come up with in like 1893 for a team. Zebras, I don't see it being Zebras because I can't picture. I would think if there had been a Zebras, I would be able to picture the logo. And Zombies, Zombies would have been one of these newfangled ones, and I feel like I would know that one too if it were zombies. So I'm going to go zeros and say it was like some late 1800s phenomenon where a journalist gave the team the name.
Your answer is correct. Congratulations with a Z. But your reasoning is not.
Oh, I'm way off. Okay.
As a matter of fact, one of the potential choices I was not choices, but actually correct answers to this question was Zulus, which was the name of a team in Pittsburgh. I believe a major league team back in 1878, but it's listed in my book, The Professional Baseball Franchises from A to Z. It was listed as an alternate name for the Pittsburgh Alleghenies. And then I noticed that there are multiple alternate names for that team. So that goes back to a day and time when, sports writers, when teams didn't either have names or sports writers would just give them these alternate names and nothing was necessarily official. The Zeros were actually, well, first of all, they were from Centralia, Illinois. And they were members of the Class D Mississippi Ohio Valley League from 1951 to 1952. So yes, that was a long time ago, but not turn of the century.
Like they chose that name for themselves.
Right. And despite my sleuthing efforts, I was not able to find anything online. I was able to find more information about that team, but nothing about why that name.
If you had to quantify using a mathematical concept or a number, how much information you found on that, why that team was called what it was called, what number or mathematical concept would you give it?
0.
I think that's probably the right answer.
Hey, let's just back up a quick second here.
Yeah.
A little information about the North Carolina Zoo. Check out this little bit of coincidence, being that we're talking about Z's today, and we talked about the Sky Dillon's Ashboro Zookeepers. The North Carolina Zoo, which is the zoo there in Ashboro, was once home to Ham the chimp, the first hominid in outer space. That was the chimp that went up to outer space before humans went to outer space. He was moved from the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., where you figured he probably might belong, in 1978, and lived there and lived in the North Carolina Zoo for the rest of his lifetime. So nice coincidence there, being that we just had our own space-themed fun part of our trip this past weekend.
That I think that first of all, that tour of the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center there in Madison was incredible. What a generous afternoon Jay Hollenbeck spent with us to take time off from his important work, working on the actual Artemis rocket ship that's going to take astronauts to the moon in 2025. Like, this is incredible. We got to learn so much and see so much, get this incredible behind the scenes tour. You're always about making the connections, Dan. So it's I love the connection that you just made between the Ashboro, the North Carolina Zoo in Ashboro, and that time that we just had in Madison. We've discussed that road trip quite a bit here on this episode, and that was a formative experience for me. So thank you again for initiating the conversations that led to an amazing weekend.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you and Ranger Amy and Anna, if you're listening. Of course you're listening. Thank you all. I had such a great time last weekend. So looking forward to the next time we do something like that, and looking forward to next week when I return to Studio Simon Stumpers.
Looking forward to embracing all the letters of the alphabet. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
I'll see you next week.